Hello, everybody. Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to Cub Chat Live. My name's Aaron. I'm joined by my good friend, Cub Chat Mike, here on the other side of the screen. The topic of today's show, an important one, finding quality Cub Scout leaders. We've kind of touched on this in a few different aspects over the last couple of years since we've been doing this show. And we're going to do it again today. But before we get started, it wouldn't be a Cub Chat Live with Mike if we didn't have a joke.
Oh, well, good morning, Aaron. And isn't this great to be back on Cub Chat Live? I just came back from a week at Philmont with commissioners, and there were a number of commissioners during that week that came up to me and said, "You're Cub Chat Mike," and hello, and introduced themselves. So my first shout out right now is to anyone listening who was at that Philmont training session just a week ago. It was great, and I'm glad that we're all back together.
Absolutely.
You're right. You are right. Today, we're going to talk about finding and selecting quality leaders. This topic is always relevant. Always. And today, I have 6 points, Aaron, that I'm going to make. We're going to talk about these 6 points. 1, we need to create a culture where everyone in the pack knows that they need to help. Everyone needs to do something. Number 2, we want everyone to know how important it is to get to know your families, especially the new families that you are just talking to at your recruiting events or at your first pack meetings. Number 3, when you ask a volunteer to do something, you want to fit the job to the volunteer's talents and personalities. And basically, I like to give a person a task, not really a title. Number 4, make the ask one-on-one in a relaxed forum. Then number 5, once the volunteer says yes, don't just leave them out there, follow up and stay with them. And then number 6, always recognize the volunteers as often as you can. Now, you mentioned something that which is something that I do every one of my Cub Chat Lives. I want to give a couple of riddles out there. I'm going to give the riddle early, and then hopefully by the end of the session today, when I give the answers, the various viewers will have figured them out. So my grandson is a Wolf Scout. He just came back from RBRC Cub Adventure Camp in Payson, Arizona, and he asked me these following questions, these following riddles last Sunday. So I'm going to ask them to you and to our audience. Riddle number 1. Which side of a horse has the most hair? Which side has the most hair? Riddle 2. What do you get when you cross a vampire with a snowman? And riddle number 3. Why was the horse excited about his math test? So there are the 3 riddles that we're going to start with.
Well, you can't have Cub Scouts without riddles, and you can't have Cub Chat Mike without riddles and jokes. So we're going to keep you hanging till the end of the show before we give you those answers. In the meantime, like Mike said, our topic today is recruiting quality leaders. If you have any questions, please share them in the comments. If you have stories, if you have success stories of how your pack has recruited quality leaders in the past, please share them in the comments. If you have some not so success stories, share those as well. Maybe we can all learn from those. Mike said, by the way, quick shout out to Umar who's watching, Hannah who's watching. Appreciate that very much, guys. Chime in with your questions and your comments. Mike, I think, said he has 6 topics he wants to get to. Mike, is it time for topic number 1?
Topic number 1. Everyone needs to help. And the first time you get the parents together, whether it's a recruiting event or it's the first pack meeting perhaps, you need to create the culture where everyone needs to help. But now first, we've got to get the parents into that meeting and get them excited about the program so that they'll be willing to help. And if we've got our first slide, this is a recruiting flyer that a local pack uses that I am very fond of. Using it results in a pretty darn large turnout of potential members and potential volunteers. Take a look at the activities down the side, pictures. The kids get excited about that. what do Cub Scouts do? It's got the leaders information in the back. If you can take a look at the back side of that flyer, it's got a pack calendar. It's got frequently asked questions, and the QR code at the bottom on the left allows the family to sign up for Cub Scouts right there. So now I'm hoping that as we've had our meeting of our hopefully new volunteers and new members, we've got that kids excited. Now we want to get the parents excited, and put up on the slide our next on the screen our next slide, which is designed to start to get the parents excited. When you're meeting with the parents, you're going to go over a number of things that that you want them to know, that their son or daughter is going to learn new physical skills. They're going to get along with boys and girls of the same age, develop mental process, develop a value system, develop personal independence. These are benefits of scouting that you're going to explain to these new volunteers, potential volunteers, these new families, and the thought is that you're going to get them excited about scouting. And you know, Aaron, as I was preparing for this presentation, the thought occurred to me that the Scout Oath is something that we all say so many darn times, it's almost rote. But if you were to say the Scout Oath to the families as you're talking to them about the benefits of scouting and what the scouting will do for their son or daughter, listen to this very carefully and break it down. On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country, to obey the Scout law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. If that doesn't ring a bell and strike right to the heart of what parents want for their kids, I really don't know what will. And I didn't even talk about the Scout law yet. So point number one is we've got our families together. We're talking to them. And I say to my pack, if everyone does a little, no one has to do too much. And remember, parents are going to be at all the meetings. No grade school or Cub Scout that I know has a driver's license. And so the parents are going to be there. My first point is set the expectation gently, if you can, gently, that we really want everyone to help and be involved in delivering the program to the pack and to the kids. That's point number one. Awesome. Point number two is get to know your families. Now, you want to know the various talents and what they can offer the pack. And so the first on the screen right now, we see the Family Talent Survey. Now, there are all kinds of family talent surveys available. This one is pretty complicated. You don't need to know the parent's blood type, if that's a question on there, and it could be. But there's another family talent survey right behind this one that's a lot more simplified. So I would suggest that at the meeting where you're looking for volunteers, you're explaining the program, give each family member a talent survey, ask them to fill it out, what their strengths are, how they may be able to participate. Keep it pretty easy. So it's important to know that a major reason that families leave scouting is that they don't perceive a welcoming atmosphere. This is our chance. Get to know our families. Our current parents can adopt and be involved with the new parents, but spend time. You don't have to fill all of your vacant leadership positions in the very first meetings. As a matter of fact, you may not even want to fill all those vacant leadership positions in the first meeting. You want to take the time to know who you've got, what their strengths are, and be observant. Some parents will be involved in the pack meeting right off the bat. Some will sit in the corner and work on their iPhones. Scope out who you've got, before you start contacting people and asking for volunteers. Aaron, do we have any more shout outs yet? Is this a good time to mention who's watching?
We do have some shout outs. Thank you very much. The Montana Council is watching. They say, we appreciate your help on this topic. Viewer Bert shares a link to a page from the Atlanta Area Council, 50 Ways to Lure a Leader. And that's a good reminder. Both check out the link that Bert posted in his comment, and also use that as a reminder to be sure and check with your local council for any assets that they might have. They may have some materials very much like what Mike has just talked about, forms that you can fill out, you can download and print out and maybe fill out on your own that you can personalize, things like that. Angela says hello from Oklahoma, Pack 975. Thank you for watching, Angela. Hannah has a good question. I mean, it's kind of related to our show. Is there a way to suggest a Cub Chat topic? There is, Hannah. You almost just did it. Put it in the comments right here. We will read it. We will take it into consideration. We will put it on our list. Let us know what you would like to do. You can post it to our Facebook page. There's the URL right there. At any time, we would love to hear from you. Send us a message. Post it in the comments. Let us know your ideas. We would love to hear that. John says, howdy from New Berlin, Illinois, Pack 320. Thank you for watching, John. Mike, I want to address a couple of things real quick that you said there. I love the idea of recruiting quality leaders, adult leaders. It all starts with just sort of creating a welcoming atmosphere, right? That first join scouting night, getting the kids excited, talking about all the fun things they're going to do, as you can see in these photos here. That gets the kids excited. That gets the parents excited. Really important that, you know, whoever's running your scouting night have that open, welcoming attitude. Much easier to recruit Cub Scout leaders in that sort of environment than it is. And I also think that sort of plays hand in hand with what you also said about you might not necessarily fill all your opening spots that very single night. It might take some time to get to know people. You have a much higher success rate during that, I think, than some sort of high pressure sales tactic of trying to corner someone that night that you've never met before and maybe pressuring them into do something they're not that excited about doing.
What we're trying to do, Aaron, is to build a pack community. One objective of the pack is to have the parents bond. You don't want the parents, some group, one den of parents in this corner and the other. You want the parents to become friends, because if the parents become friends and the parents enjoy a bit of a social element at the pack meeting among themselves, then they're more apt to encourage their scout who may be on the fence. Gee, I don't know if I want to go. Oh, well, let's go. When you've got the parents who are friends with each other and have bonded, that really, really helps with your volunteer recruitment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, the third thing on my point is fit the job to the volunteer's talent and personality. So if you've got someone with an accounting background, keep them in mind for working with the pack finances. Maybe you've got a school teacher that's a choir leader. Well, wouldn't that be a perfect person to lead some songs at the beginning of the meeting while you're waiting for the flag ceremony to get going? And don't necessarily give the volunteer a title. You're not vice president of, give them a task. Now, I do have a little bit of a failure that I want to pass on. My thought was, and I'd heard this had worked, you take a big piece of a board and you put PostIt notes, and on the PostIt notes, you put different tasks that the pack is going to need. It sounds good. Then you have the board and the parents can look and pull off a PostIt note and say, gee, this is the one I'd like to work with. In my case, and the reason it was such a colossal failure is instead of saying something like assist with the Pinewood Derby or help set up the track for this or that, I said our PostIt notes said, run the Pinewood Derby, be responsible for the rain gutter regatta. No one would touch those PostIt notes. We stopped doing that. So that's something that certainly didn't work for me. But now, when you make the ask, this is point number 4, make the ask face-to-face in a personal, relaxed forum. have a task in mind, talk to the person, explain the need, and make the task make the ask face to face. If you have ever, as I have done, stood in front of the pack and the parents and said, "Gee, I need volunteers. Who will help me volunteer?" It is not a surprise that that doesn't work, and you don't hear from many parents. So don't ask in a large group. Make the ask face to face and personal. I remember in one of my packs years ago, a single mom said, "Look, I'm working. I really don't have time," but she wound up bringing cookies to a meeting or a den meeting. So she did something. Every person did one thing. Mm-hmm. So everyone really can help. One thing that you might want to consider, though, for particular den jobs, is to create a succession plan. Now, often we say to a volunteer, "Look, you put the Pinewood Derby track together this year. Would you keep in mind, who do you think you can get next year when you're gone to put that Pinewood Derby track together?" There is a technology there. So you want people to think about who will replace them as volunteers. And in our pack, we have a succession plan for the Cub Master. We have a Cub Master, we have the immediate past Cub Master, and we have the assistant Cub Master. We have to realize that in Cub Scouting, in Cub Scout packs, often we don't have the tenured leadership that you have in Scouts BSA units. Yeah. And so what happens, you need to be constantly worried about these important positions. So to have the current Cub Master with an immediate past president there to help and an assistant coming up creates that succession plan. Any more shout outs, Aaron, so far?
Yeah, Bert posted another link to the Atlanta website, Atlanta's council website. Appreciate that, Bert. Hannah, I think, asks a fair question. It's not directly related to our topic today, Mike, but I do want to acknowledge it. She asked, how do you address the fee increase? Recently, the fees have gone up. What is your pitch, Mike, to families who may have concerns about that?
If a family really has a concern, I think both the council and sometimes the local unit can help out with those fee increases. One way to talk about it is comparing the fee to other youth organizations, baseball, soccer, whatever. Our fee is traditionally significantly lower. And I think the point is the value of the program and what your son or daughter is going to learn from the program is well worth the money that it's going to cost. My fifth point is once you've got a volunteer, you want to follow up. You don't want to ignore that volunteer. Keep in touch. Remember, you want the parents to be bonding, talking to each other. Also, suggest after a period of time that you've got the leader, you got the volunteer, suggest a my.scouting account. You really want everyone in the pack, all the adults, to take youth protection training if they can. And there is other training that you want. And up on the screen right now is a chart of Cub Scout position training. So on the far left, den leader and assistant den leader, then Cub Master and assistant Cub Master. But look at this. If you are trained as an assistant den leader, it's taken you 49 minutes. But if you want to train as the assistant Cub Master, you don't have to do another 49 minutes. You only have to do the last two trainings, conducting a pack meeting and involving adults in Cub Scouting, because you've already been trained in the other 6 items that were required to be an assistant Cub Master. The point is, a lot of these carry over. I like the pack committee training because I think every adult in the pack should understand what the pack committee does and how it helps. And frankly, I support the notion that I want all of my families, all of my moms and dads, to be members of the pack committee. The pack committee is going to meet It's going to plan the activities. And every once in a while, instead of calling it a pack committee, we call it a parents meeting to bring everybody together. So the training and the follow is part of the following up with your volunteers once you've got them to volunteer. The sixth point I want to talk about is recognizing the volunteer. You can't recognize the good work that your volunteers do often enough. During the pack meeting, thank you, Sally, for leading the pack in that song before that we started. You did a nice job. Thank you, so-and-so, for setting up and helping with the Pinewood Derby. During the pack meeting, send emails to your volunteers thanking them. Certificates and awards at the end of the year are always very, very important. So recognize your volunteers as often as you can. Aaron, any more shout outs? I love these pictures. Look at the kids having fun. Look at that little guy climbing the wall. Isn't that fabulous?
Yep. And I think that's a great way, as we said earlier, to recruit new leaders, is to get families excited about all the fun stuff you get to do in Cub Scouts. I want to give a few quick shout outs, Mike. Some of these you saw on the screen earlier, but just to make sure we got everybody. John from New Berlin, Pack 320. Thank you for watching. Rusty from Pack 84 in Ohio. Thank you very much for watching. I always like that Todd is from Troop 601, a Scouts BSA troop, but I always like that Todd watches Cub Chat Live. We appreciate that very, very much, Todd. Earlier, Mike, you shared kind of a mistake that you made with the sticky notes. Can I share a mistake that I made back in my day real quick, if that's okay? I was reminded of this because Hannah posted a comment that she says that all the activities that she's been to, she's the youngest leader. You mentioned there's usually a little more turnover in Cub Scout leadership than there is in Scouts BSA leadership. Well, Hannah, believe it or not, that used to be me. Now, this was a long time ago, okay? But when my son first joined Cub Scouts, I was the younger leader on the block, and I just happened to sort of take over as Cub Master at a time when there was a lot of turnover. We had a lot of newcomers. And Mike, the mistake I made, I tried to do everything myself. I said to myself, I'm the one that can do this. I did rechartering, and I did popcorn sales, and I organized the campouts, and it didn't take me long to realize that is not going to work. That's not the way to run a Cub Scout pack. And I quickly realized that I need help. And I think that's one of the points that you've made as well, right?
Yeah, it absolutely is, Aaron. If everyone does a little,
right,
no one has to do too much. And those are the exact words that I use to the group. And so if someone tries to take over everything as you did, you're going to get burnout, and you don't have a succession of new leaders and new volunteers coming up. So it's important to establish that culture of, if everyone does a little bit, no one has to do too much. Okay, so let me sort of summarize in a general way what we've talked about this morning. One is what we just talked about, the culture of everyone needing to help. Number two, get to know your families. First of all, you need to know what their talents and strengths are and availability so you can use them as volunteers, and that they'll be willing to volunteer. But also, they don't feel ignored. You want them part of the pack. You want them part of the action. You don't want them to feel as ignored, because if they feel ignored, they're more likely to drop out. Then number three, you want to fit the job to the volunteers' talents and personality. Pick the jobs and pick the people that will do them best. And then, of course, the fourth point, make the ask one-on-one. No broad requests to the pack as a whole. Take people out individually before the pack meeting, after the meeting, maybe even ask someone out to coffee. You want the whole volunteer group of parents to bond together. And then the fifth point is following up with those volunteers. Have them create that my.scouting account. Have them take youth protection training, even if they're not necessarily registered as a leader. And look at the other training opportunities that are going to give them more pleasure As they enjoy the program, they're going to know more about what they're doing. These training sessions are wonderful. They're short and sweet. Then you want to recognize your volunteers in every possible conceivable way that you can. And I know I always want to make sure that our Cub Master up on there, passing the torch to someone else, gets a physical award. We give an eagle to each one of those Cub Masters. Thank you. When the other volunteers see the nice rewards, that's not going to necessarily push them over the edge, but they're going to understand and know that their efforts are appreciated. Aaron, if there's any more shout outs, now's the time, because I'm about ready to give the answers to the riddles that my Cub Scout Wolf grandson asked me just a few days ago.
That's right, guys. We just have about 3 minutes left in our show today. Shout out to Wendy from Elgin, Illinois. Wendy represents both a Scouts BSA troop and a Cub Scout pack. Wendy, thank you very much for watching. Bert posted another link to the Atlanta BSA site. Thank you so much for your contributions today, Bert. Encourage everybody to check out those links. I just want to say real quick, Mike, excellent show today. I agree 100% with the idea of creating a community. Once I learned the error of my ways, and you get all the parents, they sort of become friends, right? It becomes a community. And before you know it, they're talking about things they can do when you're not even around. They're talking to each other about, I can volunteer and I can do this. And they're coming to you saying, hey, what if we did this? And as a leader, you're like, yes, thank you for doing that. Of course, it all comes back to that, I think, creating that welcoming atmosphere and letting folks know it's not a one-person show. Everybody contributes. And when you do those two things, it really works out well. Mike, we've only got a minute or two left. I'm dying to know. You gave Gina and I an advanced sneak peek of this riddle, and we couldn't figure it out. So we don't know the answer.
Okay.
Tell us the answer to these riddles.
Okay. Riddle number 1. Which side of a horse has the most hair? The answer is the outside.
I never thought of that. I went through, never
I
thought
did
of that.
When my 7-year-old Wolf Scout asked me, I didn't think of it either. And then he said, what do you get when you cross a snowman and a vampire? You get a frostbite. And the last, and maybe even the worst, why was the horse excited about the test results? And the answer is because he got an nay.
And on that note, I've never heard more Cub Scout jokes than those Cub Scout jokes. Those are perfect. One more quick shout out.
Directly from my grandson.
Yes, thank you. Those come from an actual Cub Scout. Omar, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you joining us here at the end of the show. As a reminder, you can always go back. If you missed it, Omar, you can always go back to the beginning. This show and all of our past Cub Chat lives live on. You can go back and watch. You can even continue to comment. Anybody, it was Hannah, I think, who had suggestions for future shows. Please post those in the comments. We appreciate it very much. Mike, great job today. Any more closing thoughts before we let you go?
No, just Cub Scout Mike says, get out there and recruit some super volunteers and let's grow our Cub Scout program.
Let's do it, guys. Everybody. I agree. Thank you all for watching. We appreciate it. Enjoy your weekend. Bye, everybody. See you, Mike.